Going to get started. Good morning and welcome to the Alumni Association's second annual Entrepreneur Conference. Over the next 3 days, you will have the opportunity to learn with and from alumni and faculty experts. Network with fellow TERP entrepreneurs, investors, and advisors during our resource fair. Watch our inaugural 10 entrepreneur talks and celebrate your achievements with entrepreneurs at a school that's been rated in the top 10 entrepreneur programs 6 years in a row. I'm pleased to introduce Seema Alexander, class of 2000, who will be leading this morning's workshop, Reposition-to-Scale Your Business, the proven blueprint for companies to prepare for exponential growth. With over 2 decades of experience as a business strategist and chief marketing officer, Seema partners with CEOs and founders of professional services businesses to own their niche, to top 10 their growth and impact through the U.N.I.Q.U.E Method. This 6-step strategy framework takes into account the evolution of a service-based entrepreneur's brand and service model and guides them through a strategic process that has resulted in enhanced business, brand authority, millions of dollars in revenue, and measurable impact that her clients have made through scaling their businesses around the world. So Seema, I'm going to let you take over from now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shannon, for that introduction. And again, keep on in the chat, please. I see Lisa Dorsey, I see Caroline Gomez, other of you, Denise, if you guys can add your name, your business, one of your core challenges you may be having with growth, it would be helpful. And I can, when we get to Q&A specifically, we can start to talk about that. But I am really, really excited to be here today. I literally cannot believe it's been 21 years since I graduated at University of Maryland. It kind of blows my mind how time flies. It also blows my mind with the amount of overall experience all of us continue to have and grow as we become entrepreneurs. And a lot of what I'm going to share today is a cultivation of 20 years of experience. To Shannon's point, I'll be sharing a little bit more about my story so you really understand my why behind what I do. But I am going to be talking about repositioning to scale. I'm going to define that in a few minutes. And if you're challenged right now in your entrepreneurial journey, really focused on moving from this project-based business to a more scalable business, looking to attract more of your ideal clients, this is really the presentation for you. So one of the things I'm going to ask you to do, I know some of you guys are off video. This is why, you know, I mostly love Zoom, although I'm really, really missing these in-person events. I got to tell you, for that energy. So you got to figure out ways to bring the energy through the Zoom. I am going to ask you to close your eyes for a second. If you know me, if you've gone through any of my presentations, I'm a big believer of not only setting intentions, but manifesting what's possible in business, as there are a lot of moving pieces, as you guys all know. So here we go. Close your eyes for me. Imagine a time when you wake up in the morning and you feel completely aligned to your brand and business. It represents your core values. It represents your why. It provides you motivation and drive to want to tackle the next opportunity, next partnership, next contract over and over again. You have identified your target audiences, your niche, and the work that you want to go after. You know your ideal clients' pain points and can align them to a solution to your capabilities that you and your company and your business are uniquely positioned to do so. You have the ability to consistently deliver on time, to meet the expectations, but exceed them because you are the one transforming those clients. Your marketing and business development efforts are cohesive, working together, and you're targeting your ideal client over and over again. Your product offerings and solutions have been getting raving reviews and are consistently providing that transformation and that impact that you were meant to serve in this world. Your brand is externally growing and your people are recognizing your work, your wins, and mostly your thought leadership in the market. Your brand is helping you recruit stronger, more experienced people with deep relationships in the areas that you want to be seen. You're living in that moment that all CEOs dream of, and it's not far off. Here's the deal, guys. You can open your eyes. I live and die by this quote because I'm not a believer of, with entrepreneurship, it takes time, right? If somebody was to tell me this happened overnight for me, I think you guys have heard it. I don't believe it. It doesn't happen like that. This quote is, entrepreneurship is living a few years of your life like most people won't, so you can spend the rest of your life like most people can't. And a lot of that it has to do with impact. It has to do with profit. It has to do with lifestyle. It has to do with creativity. And we're going to touch on some of that, right? Now, I cannot start any presentation without acknowledging the reality of what most businesses, not all, because some thrived during the 2020 pandemic, right? But most businesses went through. And I can't do any presentation without these two memes, and I do it intentionally, right? If you were like most businesses, you looked initially with the pandemic and it was like, oh my God, I was gaining traction, this was happening, and now I don't know where I stand. On the right is where I want to take you. And that's really where, one person, there was a chair that was taken from under him and he fell, right? And just think about that in the world of business. And there's the other person who's sitting, but he didn't fall. And he's grounded. He's grounded because he's grounded in his brand and his business model, and it's validated. And with the pandemic, even though, I know it brought a lot of hardship on a lot of business, and I worked with a lot of clients on pivot strategies, there was also what I consider a silver lining. I think a lot of us talk about, working on your business, but what does that really mean, especially when you're working so hard just to get everything, situated, organized, operationalized, right? But the pandemic, out of all things, forced a lot of us to stop and pause. And that doesn't normally happen in business, right? Because you're just on the go all the time. And what I have found is this is a time that many of my clients, many of my peers had an opportunity to reassess what's working and what's not. Obviously, the market changed as well within the pandemic over the last year and a half. Again, some businesses got much stronger, some had to pivot their positioning, but it starts to get you in the mindset of our conversation today, regardless of pandemic. I'm going to give you 6 core tools, 6 key strategies, proven strategies that I've used over the last 20 years in different capacities, and over the last couple years in the way this methodology is working, really to help you get much more reconciled with your business model and your brand to scale. And the key of it all is that you're going to account all of this through your learning. So one of the things I wanted to make sure I covered is who this presentation is really optimized for, okay? It works for product-based businesses, but honestly, this is very, I would say, optimized for professional services-based CEOs, the expert space, the people that really have a service in the marketplace, right? It can be for lean companies to up to 250 employees. You're at some sort of inflection point in growth. You have seen traction, right? And I'm going to go through a chart in a few minutes to really give you more of an illustration of what I mean by traction, right? But you are struggling. Either you're struggling because you're trying to differentiate yourself against your competition, or, there's this word that it's maybe a cliche, but kind of being stuck in the sea of sameness, right? A lot of service providers kind of label themselves as one thing and it sounds like everybody else, right? So that's a struggle. The second struggle is really saying yes to multiple focuses. We're going to get into that. That's a lot of my market research of what that does to an organization when they're trying to scale. And it actually makes it almost impossible when you do scale. You're serving too many unideal clients, and at the end of the day, the result is creating confusion in the market of who you are and actually what you do at the core. And lastly, this is for you if you're looking for a strategy to help you consistently attract your ideal client, streamline your offers, and position yourself as a thought leader, not just another service provider in your niche market. So I did want to make sure that you understood this is not a conversation about people, processes, and technology, okay? This is what I consider a strategy It's an opportunity for you to move from this project-based business to a scalable transformation-based business. And I'm going to explain what that means in a few minutes. I'm going to actually spend just about 2 or 3 minutes giving you a little bit more background on me. Just to, you know, I think it's always important if I'm up here speaking to anybody that you understand not only my experience, but where my conviction comes from. So I am the founder of Disruptive.CEO. It's a strategic advisory and consulting firm focused on helping professional services companies position themselves in the market to really be unique, okay, play to their strengths and to scale. I'm also the founder of the U.N.I.Q.U.E Method, which we're going to be discussing today, which again is 20 years of experience, a lot of market research, looking at which companies win in the service environment and which do not, and what are those 6 core elements that are important for a company like yours to go through to make those strategic decisions so that you can be even clearer on how you want to be perceived in the marketplace. I'm also a mom of two little ladies, I should say, Serena and Reina, and 2 puppies. And about 3 years ago, moved back from New York City to live in Bethesda, Maryland. So let me tell you a little bit about my childhood. So I grew up in entrepreneurial roots, small business. My parents were immigrants from India, came here in the 1970s, literally like where we hear those immigrant stories, came here with nothing, right? Shoes on their feet. They ended up actually in Hoboken, New Jersey. And at that time, it wasn't like the Hoboken, New Jersey we see today, right? Through a lot of sweat equity and a lot of hard work, they started the first Indian vegetarian restaurant in Washington, D.C. called Siddhartha, catty corner to the White House, okay? It was a big deal. It brought a community together, not just the Indians and the Asians with the American society, but there was a big focus on vegetarian society, but it was a pillar of a organization, of a restaurant, hospitality, and it grew to 3. I started working there when I was 12 years old. You know, you imagine when you're in small business, your hands are in everything. So learn from management to catering to stuffing bottles in a vending machine, all of the above. But what happened was over a 20-year span, the businesses who were pioneers in their industry went from doing super well to close to bankruptcy in '95. And this is actually right before I started my journey at University of Maryland. And it was a very crazy time because I learned at a very young age what it's like when a CEO does well, the level of confidence and just building, obviously financials and other things. There's one thing when a business does well. When the CEO doesn't do well, I personally watched a lot of things transpire in my family. From my parents getting divorced to 4 years later, my dad tragically passed. And I got to tell you, I've been on a mission for 20 years, literally, to understand why businesses fail and why they succeed. And, you know, one of the core things I wanted to mention that, like, in this process, you know, I would get all these phone calls from the bank to foreclose on our house and do all these things at a young age that I didn't even really fathom. But I understood that, you know, there is something there around strategy, around communications, around the need to really differentiate yourself. Because when I started actually going, it's kind of funny with the University of Maryland, because when I started going to my business classes, this is when all this stuff used to sink into me. But what I did, guys, I ran away from everything entrepreneurship. I wanted New York City. I wanted to be a chief marketing officer of a Fortune 500. And I left and I went and I got recruited by Prudential Financial. I was an anomaly in my generation and stayed there about 13 years and 5 of their businesses. But the journey of what I'm going to be teaching you continued even in those experiences actually very strongly. So for a part of my first role was to take, I think it was about 2,500 financial planners and agents, a commoditized business. How do you differentiate them in the marketplace? How do you grow? We called it practice building. How do we grow their businesses so they look like their own entities out in the marketplace? My next pretty large opportunity at Prudential was working with all the chief marketing officers across all the domestic businesses. So there was 6 different business units. We were focused on the historical rebrand of Prudential Financial. And that's when a lot of things started clicking. All businesses evolve. That they were 135 years old. Who they were when they first started is obviously not who they are now. And they were perceived as this old stodgy insurance company in the market. And we had to change that because we had billions of dollars under assets under management. We had a very strong pension risk transfer business. I can keep going. But that's when I learned there's an evolution of every business. We need to get that messaging in the business model right, and then really amplify it out in the marketplace. About 8 years ago, I had another shift. At 36, in between both of my children, I know this is a funny picture because it's the only one that I have with my, in the hospital, but I had a pulmonary embolism. I had two actually, one at 36, one 2 years ago. And it changed my life. It literally made me stop and pause like it did for many of you during the pandemic of what's important. And I knew when I was in corporate America that I started getting my entrepreneurial itch back. I started doing a lot of consulting just to do the consulting. I wanted to stay on top of digital, on top of things that I couldn't do in a regulated environment, but mainly I wanted to help others. I wanted to see these experts thrive in their business. And so I left 8 years ago. I started my journey in entrepreneurship in 2 health and wellness startups. And then I started Disruptive.CEO. I probably worked with over 250 CEOs and their businesses today. A few of them you're going to be listening to at the end of this presentation, just to get you to understand sort of the growth they went through this process. So this is just to give you a little background. So with that, I'm excited to really get started. And I would love, again, if you can get a chance, put your name, your business, your biggest growth challenge that you're struggling with right now in the chat. It'll be something that we can come back to and actually have Q&A in a little bit around. I'm going to talk about the evolution of business. Like I told you, this has been something that I've kind of been not obsessive, obsessive can be negative, but obsessive in a good way, right? What is it? What is happening to businesses, especially when you're in the service space? Where are those inflection points? We're going to talk about that. I have also wanted to share with you 5 key things that I have seen that hold service-based companies back, right? We're going to go into the U.N.I.Q.U.E Method probably for about 30 minutes. And that I'm going to spend a couple, I would say there's 6 steps in that. The first 3 steps, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. And then I'm going to share sort of the rest of it. We just do not have the time today to go through it all. And, in the way that I work with my clients in the way that it's going to really resonate in a full capacity to you to really get the work done. And then exciting, I have 3 growth stage founders who are going to share their story, working through the U.N.I.Q.U.E Method, but mainly really understand their growth and their businesses with the clarity that they're receiving. And then we're going to do some networking. So, these are statistics that I've received from the U.S. Labor Agency, is that there's about $2 trillion of revenue generated from professional services firms in the U.S. And if you look to the right, it runs the gamut from business services, consulting, tourism, health and wellness, PR, IT, and there's about 9.4 million jobs spread over 1.6 million firms. That's impressive. And here's sort of the journey that I see with these professional services companies, right? They start either through some problem that they're trying to solve. There's a gap in the market. They become accidental business owners in some capacity, or it's a family business. But what happens is that first year you launch, right? And you learn a lot, and there's so much to learn, right? And that second year, sometimes you're going to continue to learn, and there's opportunities to potentially pivot. But if you're still in business the first 3 to 5 years, you've gained traction. You have, right? You have gained some sort of traction, but that traction doesn't mean it's scalable. And this is the core inflection point. A lot of times these companies are going out very general of this is who we are, this is what we do. And so the difference is when you get to the year 5 and above to growth, it's those companies that have really positioned themselves very uniquely in the market are the ones that win. And we're going to go into what that means. So I shared that chart with you very cleanly of the reality quote unquote, what businesses go through. But this is truly the reality. It's not only an emotional roller coaster, but as we all know, as we gain traction, things like who knew COVID would happen, right? A key employee leaves. You could be super lean. You're just trying to figure out how to get the next employee. You have a loss of a major client. But in that process, you have to make decisions to continue to really be able to grow. The reality is, this is the statistics most of you know, 8 out of 10 businesses fail the first 18 to 24 months. What I'm focused on is that next inflection point. Half of the businesses that remain fail at 5 years, right? And that's the interesting time for me, because I think by that time you have learned a lot of lessons. You have learned a lot about your customers that you have served. And I am a big believer, and the work that I do with the clients that I do is, if you make smart decisions that are through your learned experience, through what the market wants at that stage, and start to position yourself as a unique provider. What I say is moving from a service provider to an expert who's trying to transform a client, because you know who your ideal client is. That's when things change. And that's what I'm going to take you through today when we get into the U.N.I.Q.U.E Method. Is those are the core things, the things that I've been studying, is what is it that made that top percentage of service-based companies that really have succeeded stand out. So as I mentioned, 20 years of experience, client after client, case study after case study, company research and market research. Here's the truth. All businesses, all organizations evolve, all of them, right? When you started your organization, you looked like X. Who you are today is very different. And this is an opportunity to start to really acknowledge who you are today, but who you want to become. Because that learning through what you've already gone through is what's really going to help with the positioning in the marketplace. Now, the evolution can occur in many ways, right? Product market fit, personal experience, political changes for some, competitive entrances, obviously COVID, right? All those things. But what happens are the companies that are repositioning through experience are the ones that win, are ready to actually hone in on their niche, on really claiming their spot in the market, versus being a very more of a generalist in the market, are the ones that win. So I love, and I don't know if you guys have ever Googled this, but there's this concept called the Wayback Machine Archive. And what it does is it shows you website screenshots of companies, any company, any website domain. For the most part, they have these screenshots. And I just love looking from an outside perspective, and even if they were not my client, how companies that I admire, with the way that they position themselves in the market and the solutions that they offer, where they first started. Because it will give you an idea of, wherever you are at the right place. You have an opportunity to get to the right, if you're not already there today. Obviously, I don't know many of you, and I don't know where you are. So I'm not trying to make assumptions, but I'm showing you what the progress can look like when you're intentional about strategic decisions. So if you look to the left, this is, I don't know how many of you are familiar, but EYA is a real estate developer locally. Right. And on the left, this is about 10, 12 years ago, they look like everybody else, right? They were creating developments in the city, very common, looking sort of website. On the right, they got very, very clear on their positioning. Life within walking distance. They actually found a problem in the market, in terms of there's a lot of people in the younger generations that want that city life, but want to live in suburbia. So they're creating all their residential opportunities that they create in the market are all focused with walkability, near restaurants, near other things, and this very city-like community. It has changed their growth strategy dramatically. Paratyme management, I know the CEO really well. You know, when they first started, they were focused on just overall technology and business processes to drive measurable results. What does that even mean, right? Obviously, when you're in government contracting, you know, it's actually a whole other ball game because of how many government contracting firms I've seen that stay in this very generalist world because they're focused on, you know, their certs, their agencies that they're going after, and they struggle with finding their niche. And Paratyme is one of the highest growing government contractors in the area. And they figured it out for themselves through a repositioning exercise that they're focused on, you know, digital transformation, but even within that, a full life cycle of data management consulting. And we're going to go into, you know, how some of the steps, or what are some of the steps for you guys to think about to get there. I wanted to show you a whole other extreme, right? Because I know some of you on this call and are solopreneurs or are working toward, you know, building a smaller, I would say either lifestyle and or just an expert brand. And so this was a client of mine who had 20 years of diabetes care experience, working at places like Kaiser to many, many different agencies and other things. And what she realized, she was actually starting her own business a few years ago, and she was going to go out into the market and just be a very specific, you know, generalist, like a nutritional generalist that, you know, looks at holistic methodologies. When we worked together, we really focused on knowing her and owning her niche. And she creates, the way that she works with diabetes management care is very holistic in nature. She just doesn't do the education piece. She adds in a lot of different variants that a lot of other practitioners don't do. Everything that she does is around this going forward, including her own IP, her own courses, the way that she leverages her methodology, because she has learned over 20 years, if you go through this process, this is the transformation that I can almost guarantee will happen. Obviously can't guarantee in health, but you know what I'm saying? Like, through your experiences, through her experiences, we were able to get very clear on her business model and how she wants to be positioned in the marketplace. And that's very different than others in her market. So what are the 5 key patterns that hold you back? And I want you guys to think about, like, are any of these really things that you struggle with, right? Because these are very common and they're very normal. We all have gone through it, including myself, right? Because, you know, the first finding is there is literally this concept called FOMO, fear of missing out, right? So when you're going from a generalist model, and, you know, in the beginning, when you start a business, you're kind of throwing spaghetti against the wall, right? You're trying to figure out, does your service work? Who is your ideal client, or who's your client? Who's going to pay you? How do you keep the lights on? All of the really important things, right? So over time, you know, you have, you're known as a generalist in the marketplace and not as a specialist. And in the beginning, that may be okay because you're still trying to figure out what you like, what you don't like, where you want to hone in. But over time, even if you've been around 15 years, what happens is you look like everybody else, even though you've gained so much traction in the areas that you know you have, but people don't know that. So your positioning is off. So this is one thing that's really important, is focusing on moving from a generalist to a specialist. The second finding was a lack of clear understanding of the evolving need of your ideal client. So there's a lot of assumptions being made with offers. Oh, I think this is exactly what they need, right? But what they need is not what they want, right? And that's a really important concept. What they need is not always what they want. So you have to make sure you do your market research. You're constantly talking to your ideal clients, and you're leading with what they want and give them what they need, because you know through your expertise, that's really at the end of the day what's going to create the result for them. The third finding, and I had to add that picture, I just wanted you guys to smile a little bit, was there too many focuses? And this has a lot of implications, okay? This happens to organizations at 5 years because you are a generalist. And I'm going to get into this later in the presentation, but you know, put yourself in this scenario, because a lot of my clients are in this boat where you're getting even referrals from people, and then you start getting on the phone, you're like, man, that's not even what I do. But you know, it might be good revenue, maybe I should do it, you know, it might be good, and then you say yes, and then they become that pain in the ass client, and then all of a sudden You're not focusing on scalability in your business because you're working on things that, you know, you're not maybe the expert in, but you can figure it out and you're just going to get it done because it pays, right? And so what happens is when there's also internal frustration that happens if you guys are folks who have teams, right? Because all of a sudden when there are too many focuses and we're working on this today and this tomorrow and this, guess what happens? You know, they don't know what to deliver on. The quality goes down. Your reputation takes a hit, right? That's very, very common. The fourth, and there's 5 of these. So the fourth one is working with too many unideal clients. You know, I do a whole exercise with my clients on really identifying both their ideal client, of course, which is a common exercise. I think I do it a little bit differently because I focus on your experience with the people you've already worked with versus just thinking about like, oh my God, if I had this person. For me, when you think about your ideal client, I focus on the people that you've actually created results and transformations for through your expertise. And when you think about your unideal client, it's as important, if not more important, to recognize these are the people that are leading you to focus on more project-focused work versus scalability in your business. You know, they're the ones who are going to, yes, they are going to value your services, but they're not willing to fully pay the amount that you're wanting them to. And then some of them may even be unsatisfied because a lot of times these unideal clients, you know, the solution that you have may not be a perfect fit for them. So even though you've done the work that you're supposed to do and potentially even scoped out, right? They're unsatisfied. So they're not going to be your brand ambassadors. And there is cause for reputational damage there. And lastly, with all of that said, right, because there's a lack of a UVP, a unique value proposition, you know, this is the Where is Waldo picture. If you guys are familiar, I don't know how much I'm dating myself right now. Normally there's a big red Waldo in here somewhere. I put it in black and white intentionally because this is a sea of sameness, right? And my role, my job, what I love to do is help people really figure out how do we become unique? How do we stand out? What are the things that are going to be, what are the implications on the business model and the brand to really get us to own our share of the market in whatever capacity that looks like. So this is my frustration. I'm sure you guys feel it. There are many of you on this call right now, right? And not only yourselves, and again, I don't know where everybody is, so I'm not speaking for you. I can only speak through my experiences, speaking to peers and other entrepreneurs, and obviously my clients. There's so many smart, capable people out there. They're not reaching their potential, right? And what's happening is the reality is in 2020, 7% of the US-based small businesses made $1 million and above. 93% made $50,000 or less. That's a huge, huge discrepancy, right? And so for me, this is where I know the people in the either making the less 50,000 or even in the middle, right? It's like they've built some traction, but if they just made these core decisions, if they just focused on really knowing where they can play well, transform people, things will shift for them. And that's my hope. And that's why I do what I do. I also think this is different because this is not the beginning of your business where you're just trying to figure things out. This is, you're at an inflection point in your business where you actually have data. You have data to go through to think about, you know, okay, wow, with this experiences that I've had with the clients that I've worked with, how do I listen to the data and refine? And this is where the concept of repositioning to scale came to play, right? There's obviously this whole thing of rebranding. People rebrand companies because, you know, something went wrong, there's a new leadership, new direction, all of, you know, there are many reasons. For me, I'm focused on a strategic exercise to align your business model and your brand so that you can scale, right? And this doesn't really have to do with your logos, maybe your tagline, but not really, right? That's not the intention. The intention is to get you to create, be more strategic in your decision-making so that going forward, you are very clear on your direction and your brand and the way that you want to be perceived in the market. So here are some quick true reflections, right, that I have heard over and over again. You know, Seema, like, why are we not attracting our ideal client? We worked really hard. You know, why is our marketing not working? I've hired an agency, I've been burned. That's like such a big one that I always step back and I say, your marketing is not working because your business model is broken. Just take that in for a second. How many times do you think an agency can fix everything, but the agency doesn't know your business? They're just going to amplify what you tell them to amplify, at least most, not all, right? Prospects, when they see that you're focused on everything, you can help them with everything. Guess what? They're actually thinking, are they experts at this? Can they deliver those results? Versus you being a niche, you're speaking in my language, you can help me with this service because this is exactly what I need. Very different approach. And if you do have employees, right, when you start focusing on too many things, they get frustrated, right? How can we deliver on all this? Like, I've been in so many companies. I took a couple residences in a couple of my companies that I was working with in a consulting fashion as a CMO, as they were rebranding or really honing in deeper into their market. And that was the top thing, is if they were focused on so many things that there was so much frustration. And we got them to get very clear on the things that they do well, where they play to their strengths, and then reintroduce themselves in the market. Because they've had reputation, now they're starting to build out leadership, doing all these things. That's when things started to really click. One of the companies I can share with you is a company called Let's Talk Payments. Let's Talk Payments was the first fintech blog. I think it had 1 million hits the first year. Within 5 years, they were focused on this external perspective of being a media company, all the blogs, all the trends on payments, where they really have become this full service sort of fintech consulting company, and heavily actually in payments. So we repositioned them to really own to their strengths, to own what their services really were. And I think it was just a few months ago that they were bought. They exited from a larger company that really saw the value in what they were bringing. They wouldn't have been able to do that without positioning themselves for success. So the stuff is very powerful. So I know most of you are probably very familiar, like I am. As I do my research, I look at the business model canvas, very simple. It's smart. It really helps people really just map out things, right? Like, this is who we are. This is what we do. These are our channels. You know, then there's the lean startup that I really like as well. Heavily focused, I think, on more product, you know, your MVP, you know, minimum viable product, all smart things, obviously very successful entrepreneurs. And then you look at Gino Wickman's, if you're familiar, the entrepreneurial operating system. And this is what most entrepreneurs use to scale around technology, process, and people strategy. Awesome. But what I kept seeing was there is a gap. Before you can start to scale people, processes, and technology, where is that reconciliation of the evolution of the brand and the business model? You know, not everybody can go out and hire large marketing or management consulting firms, or, you know, especially when you're lean, you got to figure this stuff out on your own. What are the tools to help people get there? What's the method? And that's when the U.N.I.Q.U.E method was born. My goal is to get you to move from a service-based provider to a sought-after expert. It's a very different sort of positioning. It's about being intentional, not accidental in your decision-making. It's about focusing on what you've learned over the years to finally make those decisions to be clear on your business growth versus just letting it happen for you. Some people get very lucky. Some people are very strategic, and many people just kind of go with the flow. I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I know, you know, struggle with the consistency, struggle with the scalability, because they're just working on, like, you know, with good people, awesome projects here and there, but then they lack in prospecting and they lack in this. And, you know, it just starts to really come together when you're not niched. And again, when you're a generalist. So this is the steps. I'm really, you know, I was trying to figure out, God, we only have a certain amount of time. I know I want to keep you guys engaged. I don't want this to be a boring presentation, but I want to share some of the key messaging around each one of these steps. And I'm probably going to dive deeper in step 1, step 2, and step 3. And then I'm going to have 3 founders who are going to talk about their experience working through the U.N.I.Q.U.E method. either through one of my accelerators or a larger consulting opportunity. But really, I think that's when the rubber is going to hit the road, when you hear yourselves in others, right? I think that's when we always connect. So what is the U.N.I.Q.U.E method, right? These are the steps I'm going to go through. This first 3 steps. Step 1, unicorn vision. Step 2, niche positioning. Step 3, developing your own intellectual property. It's a big one. We're going to get into that. Those 3 decisions drive the execution of how, focusing on your qualifications and thought leadership, unifying your messaging, and enrolling a niche network. So let me just jump right in. I use a case study for each one of the steps. And I'm really near and dear to this case study because the CEO recently passed away. He was a client, he was a friend, he was doing incredibly well, very, it was like totally, it wasn't COVID, it was just a random act. And so I do love showcasing the thought process, because I was there every step of the way of how things happened. And so I use this case study, and I will use others, but as a homage toward Oliver. So with that said, when I met Oliver and his sister, they started a company called S7 Real Estate, and they were committed to real estate development in Philadelphia, in Baltimore, actually originally just Philadelphia. And Oliver has 20 years of development experience working for some of the top developers in New York City and Philadelphia. And, over time, this is where I'm going to take you, is how did they get from going to this S7 Real Estate, and this is within 2 years, it wasn't a long time, to a concept called Turnkey Property Pro, and the very strong, smart positioning around real estate investing made easy. And we're going to get into that. So first, if you don't mind, I'm in the chat. Could you tell me, does your vision and your why of your business still drive you? If you have employees, drive your employees, your clients, your partners. Does it excite you, right? Does it make you want to get out of bed every day? Could you just write yes or no in the chat? Just curious. I'm going to open the chat. I haven't seen you guys with your intros in a while. But if you could, just let me know. Let me know. It's always good to know, because there is such an opportunity to redefine. I see a lot of yeses. That is awesome. You guys have done the work. I love it. And for you guys, you were saying no, that's part of the process, right? And things actually do change over time, right? So let's get into this. Step 1, identify your unicorn vision. So if you like Steve Jobs or not, there were certain quotes of his that I really vibe with. When you're working on something that you truly care about, nobody has to push you. Your vision simply pulls you, right? It should pull you, it should pull your team, it should pull your brand ambassadors. It should inspire, but it should also keep you focused. So what does that mean, Seema? I get a lot of that. What does that mean, Seema, unicorn vision, especially in the service-based environment? Because you think about unicorns when you think about, tech startups, if you will, the Ubers of the world and others, right? So I love doing research online. And of course, visioning is the development of a plan, a goal, or vision for the future, right? But what I found, because I was always curious, why do they call it unicorn? The second definition of unicorn is something that's highly desirable, but difficult to find or obtain, right? And I think in the world of entrepreneurship, especially when you're repositioning, when you're re-engaging and really thinking strategically about your business, there are 3 reasons why you want to create a unicorn vision. 1, the reality is your business has evolved. Who you were when you first started is not who you are today. So making sure your vision is very connected and aligned to who you are, who your values are, what your values are for your company, and where you want to take it is very important. The second part of it is your motivations. It should motivate you and inspire you, right? The truth is, guys, if you don't already know, entrepreneurship has its ups and downs. Okay, so when I work with people on their unicorn vision, I tell them this has to be bigger than yourself, right? And in the service-based industry, that's not a normal thing of like, oh, we want, it's like, how are we going to be transforming businesses and lives? I'm a big believer of impact and profit. Okay, this is not just a mission-driven world in the sense of like, I work with mission-driven companies all the time, but this is about you know, it's about doing good and making money, right? So, but at the same time, it's about what's going to drive you to get out of bed, because there's a lot that, like, as you saw in those charts, things happen, right? And the last thing, and the most important also, is that it needs to drive direction and decisions. So again, going to Stephen Covey, focus with the end in mind. So what does this all mean, Seema? I'm going to give you a 30, I think it's about a minute video. Simon Sinek is the king of your why, but he also created this really great short video on what's your vision, and I'm just going to play it for you.
Vision really matters, right? Like when you have far off destination that you're pursuing, you can adapt much more easily. So let's take a silly analogy. Let's say you live on the East Coast and you want to go to the West Coast. You pick a route, you pick a highway, you pick a road, and you make your way towards where you're going. Now, all of a sudden, there's a car accident, and there's a blockage, and everything comes to a grinding halt. You have options. You can either sit in the traffic, or you can take the first exit and take a slower, more meandering road, but you're still going in the basic same direction. Companies with vision, that's like having a destination. They are able to pivot, go sideways, go around, go slower, go on small roads, but they have a basic sense that they're moving in the same and right direction. Companies without vision, companies without a sense of the infinite road ahead, they're going to sit there and panic. We're not moving, we're not going, and if they do take a side road, they'll have no idea which one to take or which direction to go in. And so that infinite mindset sets these long-distance just causes that help focus us and give us a direction, especially when we face blockages.
Okay, so one of the things, I hope you guys like that, because there's certain people that inspire me on a daily, and you know, everybody has their own people, but Simon is one of them. I normally do this. I'm not so you guys know, I'm not an marketing agency bred person. I'm a practical experience bred, understanding business, the ethos of people's mindsets type of person. So I have different tools that I've come up with that I use that really helps people revision what they want for their business, what they want for their company, what's going to keep them excited, what's going to inspire their employees. And one of the tools, which may actually be a common branding tool, just something for you to think about, and I just wanted to share, is think about the car that you are today, your business is today, you know? Like what type of car today, right? Don't think about it yet in the future, right? And then it's like, okay, so you can characterize it, right? I'm a Honda Civic. This is multiple. I have a whole size as I go through my accelerators. I have everybody sort of this is who we are right now, right? We're reliable, we're this, we're that. That's where all these brand traits come out. But then it's like, where do you want to go? And this is where the Teslas and the Suburbans and the this and the that will all come out. And that's actually two things happen with that. One, you start to look at, wow, how are we going to get there? That's a big there. It's like re-engineering your business, right? Now it's like actually pretty cool, because those little exercises make a big difference visually. Not everybody is okay with writing words or even videos. Sometimes it's like, okay, we're moving from this Honda Civic to this Tesla. How are we going to get there? What does that even mean, right? The second thing it does is actually start to tell you the values that you have and what's the values you want to instill in your company. Because think about a Honda Civic, that not traditional, but it's just like solid in certain aspects. Or it's like earlier stage, maybe that's a good one. And then the Tesla is energy efficient. I know if some of you know a lot about electricity and electric cars, there's flaws with Tesla's Model 2. I get it, but I'm not trying to be naive to that. But just from a general perspective, right, you really start to see the traits. The three ways I look at deciphering your unique vision is obviously what's the big problem you're solving for. And now that you are experienced in the problems that you have continued to solve for, what is it? What is that bigger problem? You know, that really aligns to you, that you know you are an expert around, right? You get confidence because then you start to look at all your social proof. Here's the experience, the conviction around what I do to transform someone's life or business. This is where that impact part comes in. I don't care. This is not about just social good companies. It's not the point. The point is that everybody in your level of expertise can transform somebody's life or business from what you do. You just have to acknowledge that and be able to translate that into messaging. And the last thing, and I hope this makes you smile because it is kind of visceral, but it needs to make you want to throw up in your mouth. And I say it in a way because it has to, it's kind of like you want it to move you. You want it to scare you, right? I have this book that says like, what's the one thing that you do that scares you every day, right? And it's like, you want to be able to grow. And the reason I say it and why that is so important is, as you guys know, and I keep bringing it up, entrepreneurship doesn't happen overnight. There are good days, there are bad days, there are days that affects your relationships, there are days that it affects your finances. Everybody else on the outside thinks you look so good and you're making all this money. And guess what? You're waiting on this contract. You're getting there. You're excited. You see the traction. Or there might be something else on the other end that, yeah, you just lost a client, but no one knows that, right? But once you get bigger than yourself, and I always say add a number. So this is literally when the shift occurs, that you no longer think of yourself as a service-based provider. You think of yourself as this expert, you know, going out in the market. Your company is an expert to help people transform, make a larger impact, make more profit through your own experiences, through your company's experiences, through your people's experiences and expertise, right? So now, and just one little caveat is when people go through the method, what happens is even in the vision, when they first start out, because I asked them to do this on day one, once they go through the process of actually analyzing the rest of the data, they get they start to revisit their vision again. And that's when it gets even more clear. So for me, you know, I've really honed in. I'm going to get clear and keep refining my framework. But my goal is by 2025, I want to help 100,000 expert female entrepreneurs grow their impact and profit, right? Leveraging the U.N.I.Q.U.E Method. So what that means to me, this is by 2025. My content and thought leadership needs to be on point. I have a lot of program development to do. I have tools to develop. I have a book that I'm starting to write. I have a TEDx to do. I have a certification program, because I look at this as, if I do this right, Seema, this can be that missing link in between the business model canvas, in between oh my God, you know, the EOS on the other side, right? And sort of that, you know, MVP in the middle, right? So this is what I feel like is missing. And I can feel it, but the days that I'm having a hard time, the days that I'm like, man, that didn't go so well, or whatever it may be, you know, this is the vision that keeps me going, right? And that's what I want for each one of you. So going back to the homage to Oliver and his company, you know, that his original vision was transforming old places into new living spaces. It was very design based. It was helping communities. It was great, right? And really it was from his heart. You could see it. He was doing well, but it transitioned to help 500,000 quote unquote everyday people. Call it what you want, but it's just less sophisticated investors in real estate find real success in a turnkey income generating real estate investment. And that drove him, and it drove him far. And again, you're going to continue to see the progress as we talk through each one of these steps. That was a very mini course of the unicorn vision, but I hope you got some ideas. And if you have questions, comments, please put them in the chat. I'm always going to be talking through that, looking at that as well as we get to the Q&A. Okay, second step, niche positioning. Tell me in the chat, are you known as a go-to specialist in the mind of your prospect, not in the mind of your own company, or a generalist without any real differentiation? You could just put specialist or generalist in the chat. This is a really important distinction, but always, always remember that it's not about what you believe you are. It's about what your prospect is thinking about you. It's about positioning, right? Positioning is about the consumer's mind, right? And that's what's really, really important. Okay, and we're gonna go deep, a little deeper in this one. Again, I'm sharing with you guys like 5% of the tools and concepts, but I'm hoping you understand where I'm headed with this, and I really hope this is gonna help you guys think a little differently with your company. So step 2 is identifying your profitable niche positioning, right? Profitable, focus and differentiation. And niche is also different than positioning. Niche is about the segment, who you want to serve, right? Positioning is about how you want to be perceived in the market. Niche is about who you want to serve, the specific segment. Positioning is how you want to be perceived and the transformation you actually want to provide to the market. So when you market to everybody, I know you've probably heard this a million times, you market to nobody. This is what happens when you're a generalist, right? You just try to talk to everybody about, hey, I'm a dentist. Hey, I'm a fintech consultant. Hey, but I can solve it all, right? Whatever you need, right? And I'm sure you've heard this concept. This is Ryan Dice. I don't know. He's like the CEO of Digital Marketer, really smart, crazy businessman. Riches are in the niches. It's not about stitches, right? It's riches are in the niches. Okay, here's my thought. Riches and more impact are in the niches, okay? Because when you get really clear on who you serve, what you do, who you do it for, the transformation you provide, there will be more impact and there will be more profit, hands down. And of course, this is validated. The validation is key, and we're going to talk about that. So according to HBR, Harvard Business Review, businesses that are clearly defined niche, they have a clearly defined niche and strong positioning, massively outperform those who don't, right? Including revenue, customer retention, employee satisfaction, and the quality of their client relationships. The quality of the client relationship, huge. Your clients become your ambassadors. Your clients can, you know, I don't have this quote in here or this statistic, but when you focus on, you know, trying to get new leads, it's 7 times more expensive to get new leads than work with the next part of the journey with your client, right? So those client relationships are huge, okay? So I have the next couple slides just thinking about what all my clients have talked to me about, or just in general, when I'm on like the Clubhouses listening in, which if you're not on that platform, it's a very good platform for market research. I don't care what you do. They have every topic. Obviously, LinkedIn is also great, but it's just a different form. Niching is one of those buzzwords that gets people super scared, right? People panic because they feel closed. You know, how, like, these are the questions I get. How broad or specific should my niche be? How can I niche down without limiting my future growth? What if I changed my mind? I feel like I'm being put in a box if I say, this is who I am, this is who I serve, because I do more than that. Does any of this sound familiar? And some of you said that you're specialists, so I'm sure you went through this process as you went and really decided to become more of a specialist in what you do. I need you guys to reframe this concept of niching. And I know there are a lot of words on this slide. I did it intentionally. Take a picture, okay? Take a picture. How less stressful would running your business be if you could serve a highly targeted group of customers that you curated because of your positioning? Oh, I see a typo. I apologize. They seek you or your company out, not lout, as an expert to help them. You or your company can solve their pain points and transform their lives and businesses. That's a shift I want you guys to think about. And they are willing to pay the fees that you charge because they see the value in what you do, because you're bringing it, you're bringing the transformation they're seeking. That's a way different sort of positioning than trying to, you know, create scope for people who are not really the ideal client, who don't see what you bring. And this is a new insight. I think the days of labels alone are gone. They're killing your growth in your business. I'm a dentist. I'm a nutritionist. I'm a business coach. I'm in business coaching. I'm an executive coach. It's too broad. That means you're literally labeling yourself like everybody else in your segment. But if you start to give yourself permission, I'm giving you permission to stop throwing spaghetti against the wall. I love this meme, love. I have to use it now everywhere because it's like so cool. I'm giving you permission to stop throwing spaghetti against the wall. I'm giving you permission to position yourself clearly to the people you serve in the unique way. So when you do move from, hey, I'm a dentist, to, hey, I run a dentist practice, I focus on reimagining dentistry, I focus on your mouth being the gateway to your body. We don't just focus on your overall oral dental care, but we focus on what's actually happening in your body so we can translate that to potential autoimmunes you may have, or restoration, so you can keep your teeth going forward, and obviously focus on your beauty and your smile. That's a client of mine. Dr. Manisha Grover, Clarendon Dental Arts. That's very different than what other dentists do, but she had to own that positioning, right? I need you to start owning your experience to make real growth focused decisions. Own your excellence is what I say. And so here's like the 3 steps. You can take a picture here. Also identifying, I said this in the beginning. Again, I'm just giving you guys snippets of this work. So forgive me, one, if there's too much information, but I'm just trying to get you to really just think about and shift your mindset around these 6 key things. Identifying your unideal client, identifying your ideal client, and deciding on your specialty. This is called learned niche positioning. So from this case study, and I'm going to kind of speed this up. I know it's 11:05 and I have a few people I need to interview, so I'm going to speed this up a little bit. Current niche. So previously, again, Turnkey Property Pro, they were willing to take anybody, right? Domestic, international real estate investors who wanted a turnkey solution. They finally got into this whole unique positioning, real estate made easy. Now they're focused on fully turnkey real estate investment firm for everybody, everyday people who are looking for income generating properties, but do not want to, nor have the expertise to go through the search, rehab, lease, maintain process, right? So again, just getting clear. Just going to skip that one. The third one, which I'm going to go a little deeper in, and then the other 3 I'm going to go pretty quickly around, is IP. This is a really big differentiator. This is a shift. This is the shift, and I'm just going to move on a little bit. Establishing as a service-based provider, establishing your proven intellectual property, taking your experience and helping finally drive a customer through a transformation versus taking orders. It's very different, right? So what's your proven framework or methodology to get them to where they want to go? How do you create package solutions around these things? Have you narrowed down your capabilities so you're not looking like you do 50 different things, right? I'm a big believer of these frameworks and methodologies, just like mine. The U.N.I.Q.U.E method is something I'm going to continue to build, continue to refine, just keep going, building tools around it. That's what I teach. That's what I do big consulting opportunities for, you know, but every project is fun and different and challenging in its own right, right? Businesses are all different, but I know the transformation people are seeking. I'm focused on getting people to be unique in the marketplace, fix their broken business models, right? And really start to scale, because now they have a scalable model. So I'm just, in terms of case study, their process was so simple. Choose your investment. They had a ton of investment properties. We renovate your property for you. You get the returns, but their unique value proposition was not only were these 3 things very simply done for them, they actually also manage the entire process of renovation and through a nominal fee. And then they find that and vet the first tenant and guarantee it for 1 year of lease. And they have a property management company. So they thought, literally, think about turnkey. That's their process. Okay, so polling question number 4, are you the best kept secret in your industry? So this is when, like I mentioned to you guys, the first 3 are like the meat and potatoes of the methodology. It takes time. This stuff does not happen overnight, right? There's a lot of tools for you to analyze your experiences so that you can start to make decisions to get there. But now that you're clear, you start to focus on your qualifications and thought leadership platform. You want to be seen as a niche player, right? So qualifications and social proof are the biggest important things. How do people see you in the marketplace when they Google you, right? It is important. How do you develop KPIs, KPIs to really focus on the success indicators that you have done for your clients over and over again? And how do you build unique thought leadership around your perspective, around your niche, around the transformation that you provide? And this just gets much and much more easier when you have those 3 decisions made. Oh my God, what's my content strategy? What do I put on LinkedIn? There's so many. Now, you know that more you hone in on that ideal client and the unideal, you start to build, oh my God, here are all the challenges. Here's this, here's that. And you develop a content strategy to really lift you up. For Turnkey Property Pro, here are 3 areas. I mean, they had this all on their website. They did it in multiple ways, from IG to, having press focused on their model, to like the KPIs around average property pricing, average rental income, and just continue to build that PR cycle for them. The last two, I think this one, again, I'm not going to spend too much time, but this is also a turning point, guys, because you have made those decisions, because you've learned a lot. Here it is. You know, Jeff Bezos says your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room, right? When your brand is working well, there's a wonderful clarity about your company in the minds of your audience, right? That's from James Gregory. He wrote The Best of Branding. It says best practice in corporate branding, but it works obviously for entrepreneurs. And this is where many businesses go flat. They think that the way that their messaging is out today, they don't, you know, again, giving it to marketing agencies and other things, they don't realize their business models may be broken, or they're going out with generic messaging, and the marketing agencies cannot fix that. This is what a unique method actually changes that to get you to be clear on your vision, to what you do best. And the distinction I wanted to make on this part was, you're not building a brand for yourself, you're building a brand that speaks to your ideal client. That's the shift in mentality you should have when you're repositioning, going through this exercise, right? In the beginning, you are out there trying to figuring it out, writing whatever content it is. This is about showing up like an expert that your ideal client needs to create the transformation they seek, because you have done it. You've done it over and over and over again in different capacities, maybe. Now you're building an IP around it because you know you're able to create that transformation through the experiences and through the steps. I'm not going to go through this right now. There's a lot of information here, but again, with Turnkey Pro, you know, Property Pro on their website, they have a lot of very clear messaging on who they are and what they do. And the last step is around enrolling your niche network. This is a big one, right? Your network is your net worth. I think a lot of us have heard of that before. But what I can tell you is referrals are killing your business and your time. Listen, a lot of us really focus on getting referral business out in the market, but when you're getting the wrong type of referral because you're too generalist in the marketplace and you keep saying yes because you need the revenue, or you're like, you know, I can do this, I can just Google something, I can understand this, whatever, I can hire somebody to do that, and it's just going to be augmenting my staff. But it's taking you away from your focus. It's taking you away from being positioned in the market the way you are, obviously with the validated market in mind. Referrals can kill your business. So when you're niche, you start to understand who you want to develop strong mutual beneficial networks with. You start to look at different categories of people. Who are your centers of influences? The vendors, the brokers, the associations, your past clients, right? And mainly, this is, if you could leave with anything, think about, you focus on relational capital, that none of these partnerships are one way. You're looking at opportunities to develop a win-win strategy for each other. Lead generation, partnerships, commission splits. You guys either have the same ideal client, complementary services. Maybe there are even people who do the same as you, but the opportunities that you say no to, you might be able to feed to somebody else's business. That could be another revenue stream for you. You don't have to lose out on that, right? And again, for Turnkey Pro, lots of different partnerships, you know, focused on multiple platform investments and international investors, focused on finding the ideal tenant. They just really went very clear. Here's our 6 or 7 key people that we're going to continue to nurture and build. So in conclusion, before I get into these interviews, and I apologize, ladies, I know this is very late for you, so thank you for staying on. Unicorn vision, revisioning to inspire you, your team, your stakeholders, and drive strategy. Niche positioning, playing to your strengths and knowing who you serve through your experience. Creating an IP, really unique to your process and capabilities that transforms the ideal client that you're looking to serve. And then building off of those 3 to build your thought leadership in the market, unify your messaging, and build your niche organic network. If you guys want an outline of the method, this is a simple URL, disruptive.ceo/unique-method. I'll just give you a quick outline of the methodology if you're interested, because I know I covered a lot today. So now I'm excited, and Shannon, if you could bring up Denise Harris, Ashley Sherry, and Michelle Riestra, that would be great. I want to be able to do a quick interview with the three of them, quicker than I was hoping. But that's sort of what happens sometimes. Okay, Denise, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Ashley, can you hear me?
I can.
And Michelle, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, amazing. So I'm going to start with Denise. Denise Harris, I would love for you to introduce your business in like less than a minute and just kind of tell us who you are and what you do. And then tell us maybe the biggest challenges you were having in growth over the years, because I think you're 5 years in business right now.
Yep, sure. So thanks for having me. My name is Denise Harris. I'm the CEO of Denise Harris Executive Coaching and Corporate Consulting. I work with primarily women leaders who are looking to advance in their career and generally want to be even better leaders than they imagine themselves being. When I started working with Seema, it was for me a challenge around developing my brand messaging. There was challenges around understanding what my intellectual property was going to be and really my methodology. And as Seema said, I'd been in business for 5 years, but I was kind of struggling sort of bringing everything together, particularly in a message that was impactful and allowed me to stand out.
Thank you for sharing. And who is your ideal client, Denise?
I work with women leaders. These are women who are typically in corporate or they have their own businesses and they've gotten to a certain level and now want to, again, advance their career or even become stronger leaders than they imagine themselves to be. So my ideal client are professional women who have been in business for a period of time and reached a certain level of success.
Awesome. So one of the things, just so you guys know, on the webinar, you know, I brought in different types of businesses, and just to share with you how this methodology has impacted from a lean CEO to, you know, a 35-year-old nonprofit that we're going to talk to. This is also work for SaaS companies and others. So thank you for sharing, Denise. I'm going to get back to you in a second. Ashley, Ashley, can you share about ASHA Code and tell us about your business and how you started, one of your challenges with growth and how the methodology helped give you some clarity around it?
Sure. So I actually started working under a different business name back in like 2015, like fresh out of grad school. And I always knew that I wanted to do business strategy, business coaching, and I've been working in business and I have a business background. And so one of the challenges that I was having was at some point when you start a business, you get to the point where you're doing so much work that it's really hard to do work on the business because you're in the business. And so when it came to knowing that I wanted to work with Seema, I was at that place where I was getting clients, I was doing a lot of work, but I knew that I wasn't going to be able to scale what I was doing. I could help my clients. I was having successful clients, but I couldn't even step back to even see the trends of who I was working with. I didn't even really have the time and space to understand what could be duplicated, what didn't need to be done anymore. So when I came to Seema, I knew I needed a framework. That was my #1 goal. I was like, I need to figure out like what I can do so that I can repeat this process and not be so stressed. I was like the only CEO, I swear, that was like getting a client and then being like, oh, here we go. Like I was excited and then immediately unexcited because I knew it was going to be this process of like recreating and restarting each time. And so I knew that that wasn't sustainable. I knew I was being burnt out. So I came really looking for a framework that I could duplicate and really know going into every single client exactly what was going to happen and where I was going to take them.
So with Denise, I just want to reiterate, you know, Denise has been in business 5 years. She's worked with some of the top executives at some of the top firms in the country. I'm a very experienced executive coach, and she was able to create Elevated Leadership, which is a program that she's going to be able to transform many women who are at the top who don't feel that authenticity in their leadership. And she's building a book, she's building a program. That's exciting for Ashley. God, I'm like, when I met Ashley, her energy was insane, but she just shared something that I just wanted to make sure people heard, right? It's like the word scalability, like going into a project or every other client and being like, man, all right, now I'm going to start from scratch, and I'm going to get them to dictate what they need. They're not the experts, you guys are. Ashley is an expert at what she does. And that is just owning that process and owning your approach. And once you start to do that, people, and you're positioning yourself in the market that way, you start to attract those ideal clients. If any, and it also energizes you and it energizes your team because you're not working with all those unideal clients. And I'm really excited to see where these two are going to grow and really explode in the marketplace. The third person I wanted to bring to the table was Michelle Riestra. Michelle is the executive director for Codespa America. It's a 35-year-old nonprofit. I'll let her get into a little bit more detail. This was a different sort of engagement. This was a full-on consultancy. It was a much larger repositioning project, but leveraging the U.N.I.Q.U.E methodology. Michelle, could you share a little bit about Codespa and what the challenges were for you guys internally and externally?
Yes. Well, I'm super excited to be sharing our experience. Codespa is, like Seema said, a 35-year-old international nonprofit, and we're alleviating poverty in the most underserved regions of Latin America, Asia, and Africa by providing access to meaningful employment and entrepreneurship. And we have teams in 11 countries. So with that came a lot of cultural nuances, internal unalignment. We evolved throughout the years to be everything to everyone. So we have an amazing project teams that is very innovative. And it was like, oh, that donor needs that. Okay, we can do that. We can do this. And there was a lot of confusion. And even though in the field, we're having amazing impacts, we're literally transforming people's mindset, going from poverty to prosperity, going from, $1.90 a day to $20 a day, the income. But externally, it was like, what is it that you do again? And even my board members were like, okay, so I guess you do everything. So there was a lot of confusion and frustration in our team. So we have over 100 employees and they're mostly in the field in these countries. And we were frustrated, the team gets burned out, they're overworked, there's lack of direction. The executive leadership is frustrated because we don't get, maybe recurring donors. And it's like, why are we not getting this traction? And then we started working with Seema through the U.N.I.Q.U.E method. It was so exciting to just get that clarity of like, this is what we do, this is what we've been doing, we have the data, we have the proof points, we can show it. Like, why were we trying to be all over the place? And then the second piece that for us, it's just how it affected us internally was that Seema challenged us with the vision and mission statement of our nonprofit. And one of the things that she proposed, and we were like in this together, but by the year 2030, to be on a mission to contribute to raising 10 million more people from poverty to prosperity. And internally, my team was like, 10 million people, that's in 10 years. How are we gonna do this? Like everybody was so worried. But the more clarity we got in like what we're good at, and the more we shared and sort of like focused our efforts, having that sort of buy-in, that I could see how my team was like transforming, like their mindset was changing as well because they had clear direction. It also affected how we, report on the impact, who we partner with, and why we partner with them, right? Because we're doing this, we're all in this together, right? To raise these individuals and these entrepreneurs out of poverty. So I am super excited. I mean, we're still in the midst of the process, but I can already see how like the team is so much more focused and inspired, and I just can't wait to see the outcome, right? Because it's going to affect a lot of lives.
And I mean, I get goosebumps when I think about the work that Codespa and Denise does for the females she serves, Ashley does for the personal brands that they serve. And that's the whole point. Each one of you guys are in service. You have an opportunity with the work that you do to transform someone's business or someone's life. And if I was with the methodology, that's why it's so important for me to continue to build a tool. So when Seema's not in the room or my team's not in the room, that can still happen, right? And you have the tools to start to really position yourself, really understand the data that the work that you've done, the expertise that you have, so you can make those decisions. And then you can really transfer that or transform the lives that you were meant to transform, and obviously build the impact and the profit that you're focused on, right? So I had other questions, but just from a time perspective, I think I have to move on. But Ashley, Denise, Michelle, thank you so much for sharing. That was very helpful, and I just wanted to be able to give unique perspective to the U.N.I.Q.U.E Method and how it's worked in different business models. So thank you so much. So I only have a couple more things before closing out, because I know we have a hard stop in 5 minutes. I'd love to know, I was going to do breakouts, but again, timing is timing right now. So if anybody wants to share through, I'm just going to open it up, right, through the chat. If anybody wants to unmute and just kind of share what part of the framework resonated the most and why, or if there are any questions, let's just open it up right now since we just have a few minutes. 2 minutes. Y'all don't have to speak at once, but I love interaction. Can you, Shannon, can everybody unmute, or is it, if they wanted to?
Yes, they can unmute.
Okay. Well, if you guys are not, if there are no questions, that's totally fine. I know we only have a few minutes. I'm going to move to the last slide here. So, if you guys are interested, for the first 7 people who want to email me at seema@disruptive.ceo, I'm happy to give a 30-minute complimentary business and brand growth audit and consult. I have my next all-female CEO cohort starting on June 24th, 2021, really going much more in deep. This is a 10-week intensive that we go through this process, and you will get that transformation that you're looking for and that level of clarity. I also focus on a lot of consulting specific to larger organizations. But at the end of the day, guys, business is really personal to me. Business growth is really personal to me. I think everybody on this call has really just having the courage to put yourself out there and put your expertise out there is very powerful. I encourage you guys to keep going, but really focus on some of these key decisions so that you can really be scalable and continue to grow your impact and your profit. So thank you so much. And thank you to all my speakers and Shannon for having the opportunity to share for my alumni after 20 years of being out of school. Crazy.
Seema, what was your email?
Seema, SEEMA @disruptive.ceo.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you all. Shannon, are we good? We have 2 minutes left, so happy to answer any questions or whatever you think is the best for you guys.
If anyone has any questions, feel free to let us know. Other than that, thank you so much, Seema, for doing this. We really appreciate you. It was great to hear all your experience. And also thank you for kicking off the 2nd annual Entrepreneur Conference and sharing your framework with us today. So we do have a few more events going on today. One at noon for marketing strategies, how to stand out. At 2 p.m. for e-commerce, changing the way business is done. And 4 p.m., our keynote fireside chat with the University of President, Daryl Pines, and founder and CEO of Beyond Meat, Ethan Brown, class of '97. Thank you all so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Seema. That was really great.
Thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can you share the framework URL again, please?
Yep, it's I'll just put it in the chat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll be one of those 7.
Yep. Yeah, and feel free to get in touch with me if you guys have questions after the fact. I know we went quickly. So whatever works for you guys. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
great. Thanks again.
Thanks.